under your view, America is a country that doesn't have free speech, never had free speech.
Yes.
And that's a good thing.
No.
So Tim Pool, a well-known far-right MAGA voice, had comedian Adam Conover on his show. They spoke for a couple of hours. If you want to go to Tim P's channel, you can watch this entire debate. I wanted to focus on this one section where Tim and Adam Conover talked about freedom of speech. So we're going to see clips of the two on Tim's show. I'm going to share my thoughts on this as well. Let's get into it together.
Why won't you go to the UK and make jokes about Islam?
I don't think it's very funny. I don't have any jokes about it. I'm so confused. Dude.
Okay, let me help unconfuse you. Are there jokes that can be made about Islam? Yes or no?
Wait, I don't want to. No? I don't want to go to this particular rabbit hole.
Oh, no. You're terrified. You're a hypocrite.
What?
Are there jokes you can make about Islam? Muhammad banged a little girl, right?
I'm really baffled.
I'm terrified of the subject. I'm not.
No, I'm not.
In the UK, you can be jailed for making jokes about Islam or even bring up the grooming gangs. There are people who go online and pointed out that a stabbing was carried out by a Muslim, and they got arrested for it. I'll bet you $1,000 you will not go to the UK and make a joke about any of that stuff, because you will not go to a foreign country and, in violation of their laws, speak out against what they've said not to speak out against. Do it. I dare you. $10,000. Cash in your pocket if you go to the UK and make a joke about Muhammad having a 12-year-old wife.
We got here faster than I thought we would in this conversation. Where you're shouting at me about something I don't understand. I don't really understand how you would think it's incumbent upon me.
Do you think anybody watching this right now thinks you are confused by the notion that in the UK you go to jail for mocking Islam?
I don't understand how we got onto you shouting at me about Islam specifically. I'd like to return to
it's because you said people should be allowed to come to this country and speak out against it. And you said you're a comedian and you go to other countries, right? And you said you go to the UK. And I said, okay, if you go to the UK, speak out in violation of their laws and see what happens. And you said, I'm confused. I don't understand. What don't you understand? Will you go to Turkey? Will you go to Turkey and speak out against Islam?
I mean, if I have a joke to make sure, I don't have a joke about those particular topics.
You would.
I would.
You're saying if you had a joke about.
Oh, yeah, sure. I would try to do the best I can. I always try to poke the bear as much as I can. It's part of the job of a comedian.
Because about as it pertains to one of the world's largest religions. I mean, come on.
I mean, I haven't written a joke about that recently. All right. So look, hey man, I'm a free speech guy, right? I think that something that's nice about America is that we're a country that has that value, and that we don't generally think that you should be tossed into a van and kicked out of the country for expressing an opinion. I think that it is a change. I think it's a change in America to most people around the world to feel that, oh, wait, if I go to America and I express a mild opinion about their foreign policy in my own student paper, or maybe on a stage or maybe somewhere else, I could be, without any warning to me, accosted by 6 people on the street, thrown into a van, and taken out of the country.
Oh, come on, accosted.
Oh, let me finish. I think that's a strain. I think that's a new idea for a lot of people, that America is that type of country. I think that Donald Trump's purpose is to turn America into that type of country. I think that that's bad. I think it makes the country smaller. I think it makes the country worse. I think it's a violation of most of the values that I grew up with as an American. And that's my view of what's happening in the country. Now, if you want to say, hey, I don't like free speech for foreign nationals who are in the country who express mild opinions about other countries' foreign wars, then that's your prerogative. It's a big difference between us that you don't like free speech in that way.
I mean, that's loaded language, right?
Yeah, all the language you're using is pretty loaded.
Well, you keep using adjectives to describe things to diminish one thing while exacerbate or exaggerate something else.
I do use the English language to express my thoughts and opinions. Yeah,
yeah, but it's straw manning. It's not a legitimate attack of the ideas, right? So accosted on the street. Come on. She was arrested. Okay. She was arrested by a relatively large group of men compared to what a normal arrest would require, which I think they didn't need to do and was silly. So we can say she was arrested by several men, unmarked, or plain clothes, which didn't need to happen. But I don't need to say like she was accosted by men on the street and like it was about a mild opinion. It's like, okay, listen, the facts of the case. Like I said, I don't like the idea that people come to this country and then try and tell us how to live our lives.
You're not for free speech. I understand.
I think American citizens have self-determination and sovereignty. And I will say this even of the Canadians who keep coming here and they keep getting involved in our politics. I'm friends with some of them, but I think it's fair to say that there is an issue with Canadians, largely conservatives, who come to this country and then start advocating for conservative values in a country they're not from. So to be fair, there are liberals Canadians who do it too. I find it to be silly. That being said, Canada as a bordering nation with a largely overlapping culture is a morally different question, but still applies in much the same way principally. So I do take issue with foreigners coming to my country.
It's a nice white country, so we like it.
Canada's, they call it what, the most multicultural country in the world, I think. Mm-hmm. They big on immigration. I think Toronto is considered to be the most multicultural city in the world.
Yeah.
So here's what gets me about people on the right, like Tim Pool. Some of the stuff they say just doesn't make any sense. What I've seen is they're often super hypocritical. They'll make one claim and then turn around and completely contradict it somewhere else. Now, Tim doesn't straight up say it in this part, but we hear it all the time from MAGA folks. America's the best country in the world, the freest nation out there. And then what does he do? He tells Adam Conover, go to the UK and try making jokes about Islam. Like, yeah, we get it. You might actually get arrested over there for stuff like that. But Adam's a comedian. Like, his whole thing isn't going to other countries just to stir people up. He even says he likes to push boundaries, fine, but that doesn't mean going out of his way to offend for no reason. If he doesn't have any material about Islam, why force it? And on the other hand, when it comes to people from outside the US speaking out about our government or foreign policy, Tim doesn't say, well, at least in America, we protect speech. We're better than that. No, instead it's like he's saying other countries crack down on speech, so we should too, which is wild because if you actually believe the US is the most free place in the world, wouldn't you want us to act like it? Not copy the countries that censor people?
So Canada actually is, you can call it a nice white country. That's technically the truth, but it also is very, very much in favor of immigration and diversity and all these things, largely what many of the conservatives are coming here speaking out against. But without, you know,
this is a country where if you're from another country and you're in America, don't say anything about our politics, or you could be forcibly removed from the country. You're comfortable with America being that kind of country. Marginal. That's something that's like that's a value of yours. Those are your values.
See, you're doing it again.
No, I'm trying to understand what you actually believe.
Yeah, I'd say marginally it's a good
because I think that's a point of distinction. It's like it's useful in a conversation like this to be like, okay, I have my value, you have your value, and my value is like I really like it when people say what the fuck they think about any country's politics.
We can simplify it. My value would just be, to whatever mathematical degree, American sovereignty supersedes the right of foreigners to speak about our policies.
But in this case,
that's my value.
So you think that literally any time America is exercising its sovereignty, that's like a good thing in that particular case? Like, because
what does that mean?
Like,
you're a guest with all due respect, I think I said it like 6-7 times. You're a guest in our country. Adhere to the rules. That's it. That includes conservative Canadians, conservative Brits. That's Carl Benjamin. That's Paul Joseph Watson. That's Viva Fry. That's Seth Rogen. And it's also
so all those people should not speak about American national interests, like the Suez Canal. We shouldn't say the Panama Canal or like is Puerto Rico a state or not. Visa. They should not speak about American politics.
You can speak about what you want, but speech has consequences.
I mean, okay, so we can move on. I'll say, to me, that's a radically different America than I thought I grew up in. And I think it's fucked up that we're becoming that kind of country. I think it's really bad.
That's true.
Yeah, you don't believe I think that's true?
Well, I mean, I suppose
like what I just said, I believe. You're like, you don't believe that.
Well, because if we go back several administrations, that's not been the case ever. I mean, look at New York in the 2000s when the Bush administration rounded people up. And well, I'm sorry, it wasn't Bush, during the Bush years, and they put 200 people in like a bus. They locked them in a bus cage.
Yeah, that was bad.
That's the country you grew up in. The idea that these things haven't been happening. George Carlin got arrested for swearing. We had blasphemy laws on the book.
Yeah, and it was bad. And then we said, we shouldn't do that anymore.
And it never changed. The idea that you think you grew up in a nation where you could say whatever you wanted is an absurdity. George Carlin went to jail for swearing.
And that was good, you think?
No, it wasn't.
And you think it's good that Rumeysa Öztürk is being forced into the country.
So she's on a conditional visa as conditioned by the INA and the existing administration and the will of the voters.
Okay, but you're arguing.
No. My argument
is you're arguing that Öztürk's deportation makes sense because George Carlin was arrested for swearing.
No, you said I grew up in a country with free speech, and I said no, you did not. And it's never been true.
And you're like, okay, you're right. So under your view, America is a country that doesn't have free speech, never had free speech.
Yes,
and that's a good thing.
No,
because we're exercising our sovereignty.
No.
Okay, but you think it's a good thing that Rumeysa Öztürk doesn't have free speech?
You understand the distinction between a non-citizen here on a conditional visa and an American citizen being arrested for swearing?
I understand that there's a distinction. I don't think that either of those people should be treated differently in that case.
Let me say this.
I don't agree with you, man.
This country has never had free speech.
Okay, I think
it's a fact. When the founding fathers finalized the Constitution,
do you think we should have free speech?
Yes, but there are limits on what free speech is based on the moral worldview of the individual argument. For instance, do you believe someone should be allowed to direct someone to commit a violent crime?
That's not the moral worldview of an argument. That is the effect of the speech. So you think that whether you have free speech should be your words should be based on the moral worldview of the argument.
So to understand your view of what free speech means, I'm asking you a question.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody says explicitly, you right now commit crime to that person, is that free speech?
Someone says you right now commit crime to that person, and what do they do it?
Yes.
I mean, I guess I'm not a free speech scholar, but like that is there's probably be legal consequences for that free speech.
It is illegal to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think someone should be able to yell fire in a crowded theater?
I mean, this is the canonical example of a speech that's not free speech. So.
It actually is. That's Brandenburg v. Ohio. It is, in fact, legal speech. I don't think people should. I understand the Supreme Court's ruling on that issue. The challenge with free speech, let's go back to the beginning of this country. Blasphemy laws were on the books after they even had the First Amendment.
So
they literally said you can't blaspheme. We would say that's not free speech, but how did you have a First Amendment if you arrested people for blaspheming? My point is, and this is an anarchist philosophy, the laws of the country are dictated by those with the power to enforce it. That's why it used to be illegal to put a pie on your windowsill, but even though it's still illegal, nobody arrests you for it. So free speech does change throughout the generations. We never grew up in an era. We never had a time in our lives where you had true free speech the way the absolutists want it to be.
Yeah, I'm talking about the story that we tell about ourselves as a country, man. I'm talking about
not true.
I'm talking about the values that we have collectively as people. And of course, those are always changing a little bit, and people are trying to pull them in one direction or another.
Split in half.
I would have thought, that. Like, I don't know that much about you. I know you're very involved with Occupy and stuff like that and protest movements, which I think is cool work. I would have thought that like a student writing an op-ed about another country's war and her own institution's support for it, vis-a-vis our country's foreign policy would be the kind of thing that you would think is a sort of free speech that we should value. That is the kind of free speech that I think, I personally think like a lot of the idea of America is built upon. I think it's one of the good things about the country, that this is a country where you can come here and you can express your opinion mildly in the newspaper.
What happened at Kent State?
And I think Kent State was bad.
My point is, there's things we wish America was. But I kind of feel like a non-citizen.
But this one you said you think is good. You're not sitting here going, man, yeah, that's a bummer.
She got deported, dude. What are you talking about? She didn't get shot in the face. A conditional visa was revoked. I'm not crying about it. I don't care.
I mean, I think she cares. I think
that's
her family cares.
Bad.
I think the people of her university care. I think
change the law, man. This is a marginal issue for a single person who was in violation of the INA as it's enforced by a government that was elected by a popular majority, or I should say by a plurality, but the popular vote.
Tim Pool really isn't as clever as he seems to think he is. And that's kind of the problem with a lot of these right-wing personalities. They're totally convinced they've got it all figured out. They talk like they're the smartest person in the room, even when they clearly aren't. It's that mix of not being particularly sharp, but still being completely sure of yourself. That's a dangerous combo. And with Tim, it's honestly kind of funny. He acts like he doesn't care about this student getting deported, but then he goes on and on about what he thinks free speech really means. But look, it's one thing to not be bothered by a specific law. It's another to actually defend it like it's right. Tim doesn't seem to have any issue with a foreign student getting kicked out of the country just for speaking up. And why? Because it doesn't personally matter to him. What I wish Adam had asked him was take the foreign part out. Like, imagine it was an American-born student from somewhere like Ohio who wrote a college op-ed criticizing U.S. foreign policy and then got arrested for it. Would Tim be okay with that too? Because the way he talks, it kind of sounds like he would be. He keeps saying America's never had real free speech, and not only that, he treats that like it's a good thing. And meanwhile, Adam's trying to point out that we've made progress, and that's supposed to be a good thing. Think about it during the McCarthy era. People literally lost their careers over being called communists. I honestly feel like if Tim had been around back then, he probably would have been fine with that. Thankfully, things have moved on. People aren't getting blacklisted in Hollywood today just because someone calls them a leftist. Even though you still hear those same accusations from the right, the reality is folks can still work. The other thing is a lot of people really don't get what freedom of speech actually means. It protects you from the government silencing you. That's it. Not from consequences, not from public reaction, not from companies or platforms deciding they don't want to host your content. Tim doesn't really dive into that part here, but right-wing folks always complain about how comedians can't say certain things anymore. Like, oh, you can't joke about trans people, but you can. You won't get arrested. No one's stopping you from telling the joke. But if people don't find it funny or a venue doesn't want to book you, that's not censorship. That's just life. Anyway, I want to know what you think. Are you more on Tim's side here, or do you agree with Adam Conover? This section on free speech is just one part of the full talk. The full conversation between them runs over 2 hours, and this part alone goes for like 25 minutes. If you're curious, check it out on Tim's channel. Drop a comment, hit like, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Polyscope, and I'll catch you in the next one.